we would ask you to post your question in a chat for individual students. And then after 6 o'clock, we will transition to award ceremony for the Karen Ziccardi Arts Award. So there are two students who are part of the BFA talks today who are recipients of this award. So they will present at 6 o'clock. And then our president, Sue Henderson, and Miss Karen Ziccardi will give remarks, as well as Dean Sedicius. And then we'll end our program with two more students who are recipients of the award. So I just wanted to lay that out there. So shall we start though with the first student? So if there's any question, you can post on the chat and we will answer. Thank you.
So we're going to start with the first student, Asma Abibakar, and she'll start her talk.
Hello, everyone. My name is Asma, and today I'm going to be showing my work. The title of my work is Citizen of the World. Can you go on the slide? Next. So before I start my presentation, I wanted to tell you guys a little bit of background about my entire project. So since I was a kid, I have been traveling. I was born in Pakistan, and then I moved to different countries. I moved to Malaysia, and from there I've been traveling to Thailand, Brunei, India. So all my life I've been traveling, so it's been 23 years. And through this all traveling life, I can speak 5 different languages, and I have a lot of traveling experience. And everything has become like a souvenir, a part of me. So all of this has been imprinted on my mind. So whatever you're going to see is kind of what I feel like they are part of me as kind of a puzzle. And when they put together, they mold my personality. So the first, this first project is called the Customized Luggage Sticker. It's a luggage sticker that I created for a luggage design. And Asia, this represents my roots, my personality as Asian. I was born there. So, you know, everything started off from Asia. So what I did for this project was I designed all the, I created all the buildings, like a symbolic building of all the countries in Asia, and put them together in a collage. Next slide. So the next part is a passport design I created for myself. This is, of course, you know, the door to my traveling experience, the door to the world travel. So if you actually go on the website, you can actually open this up and see my thesis statement that's in the form of a passport. I'll also have listed all the design, like sticker designs. I've also listed all the countries I have been to and all the languages I can speak, and all of that is in this passport that I've created. Next, please. So this is a boarding pass that I've created. This also represents me because this is the start of my journey. Malaysia is an airline that was my first ever airline. I've never seen the actual boarding pass. So this is kind of like what I thought it would be, like the boarding pass that I thought it would be. So this is what I've designed. I've created my own version of this boarding pass. The start of my journey, the start of my personality, build up from this place, Malaysia. So this is like another first step to really kind of finding myself. And next slide. So this is also another thing I created. This is called the upcoming flight boards. This is like, actually in a week I was planning on going to Italy and then Dubai. But because of our current situations, we can't go. So as you can see, all the plans are delayed. But I still have hopes for the future, and that's why you will see like 2 of them are green, like boarding soon. So this kind of representing all my future destinations that I'm gonna go eventually. And these are something that's gonna be hanging. Another one, next please. So I also created a t-shirt design that goes with my culture and what I think it represents me in Malaysia. So I again did the same thing. I kind of put together all of the country, like this, like the country symbolic buildings together to put in a collage, and kind of created this design for my t-shirt because Malaysia is a big part of me. So it kind of represents me in general. Can you go to the next slide? So this is what brings all of it together in one, a travel journal. So this is like a 36-page book that I've created, and it mentions all the countries that I have been to, and it represents like fun facts and the food and everything that I have experienced through that travel journal. It's all listed in this travel journal. So if you guys want to have a look at what it looks like from the inside, you can go on the website and have a look at it. That's it.
Thank you. The following student, Gabriela.
Today, and today for my artist talk, I'll be speaking about my body of work blended by every day. As an artist, I'm focused on the mundane as essential compounds of our everyday human experience. Precisely, my thesis work is inspired by my personal experience riding the New Jersey Light Rail. Next slide, please. Using Photoshop, I've laid out tickets that I picked up from the floor from the light rail station nearest to my home on 18 by 24 map paper. I wanted to make the tickets the backdrop because they are background information in real life due to the busyness that goes on in our own lives. As you will see, some tickets have been cropped and or blurred out to further reduce the information on the tickets. At first, I had screen printed easily recognizable geometric shapes, but while doing this process, I began to think of the everyday commuters, and then it shifted to overlaying something more organic. In the next slide, please, next slide. I started thinking of how different everyone is to one another and how differently we experience and see life. I thought what they are to me, I am to them. And by abstracting the people, I'm also seeing myself as a nameless, complex blob. I was thinking that some people are wounded physically and or emotionally, or maybe missing parts of themselves. Next slide, please. In Split, the peculiar shape is split in half to represent the certain brokenness all individuals feel at any point in life emotionally. Another inspiration was the repetitive back and forth movement of the leg itself. Next slide, please. Sinking deeper into thought, it brought me to think how humans also move back and forth from point A to point B continuously. To be specific, we go from our home to work, back home to go back to work again. And this movement never ends. Because of this, I created thick lines with oil sticks moving up and down, side to side, and so on. Next slide, please. While focusing on repetition, it came to me that my process itself is of a repetitive nature, and by repeatedly laying down the same 3 layers. First the tickets, then the organic shape, and lastly line work. My goal is for my viewers to think more about their surroundings, consider their time in any type of space, and not let everyday life become the background so easily. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Gabriela. Our following speaker is Natasha Forbes.
Hi, I'm Natasha. My series is called Sweet Tooth, and it's a collection of calendar illustrations that are themed around baking and baked goods. Each illustration is themed around a holiday that falls within that month, whether it's well known or not. Many of these holidays have foods that are associated with them, so I drew a lot of inspiration from those. And for months without a major holiday within them, I used national food days that fall during that month. So this illustration here is for March. It's called Lucky Bread. It's based on St. Patrick's Day. And for all of these illustrations, they're based on like the commercial aspect of these holidays. So when you think of St. Patrick's Day, usually think of like the leprechauns and a lot of green. So for this illustration, I wanted to portray a girl that is reluctantly dressed as a leprechaun and is guarding a pot of Irish soda bread to emulate that stereotype of leprechauns guarding their gold. Next slide. This illustration is Witch's Batter. It's for October. It's based on Halloween and the idea of 3 witches around their cauldron making a potion. For this illustration, instead of making a potion, they're creating a pumpkin spice batter. So I wanted to give it a sinister feeling, but also have a playful idea behind it. Next slide. This one is Santa's Cookies, based on Christmas for December. So it was based on the idea of children leaving out milk and cookies for Santa on Christmas Eve. So I wanted a fun, kind of cozy feeling with the fireplace and the Santa-like robe. Next slide. For July, we have the 4th. So for the 4th of July, it's like a holiday, it's like a family celebration. A lot of people gather for picnics or barbecues in the park. So I wanted to kind of portray that in this image. I also wanted to use a lot of red, white, and blue. When I was researching desserts for this image, there were a lot of layered cakes that had whipped cream, strawberries, and blueberries to match that patriotic feel. And I also wanted to add the sparklers to represent the fireworks that we usually have on 4th of July night. Next slide. Then for February, we have Valentine's. So in this illustration, I wanted to portray 2 sisters working together to create a chocolate cake, one teaching the other how to pipe frosting. And for Valentine's Day, you usually see a lot of chocolates, red and pink. So I just wanted those ideas to come together in this illustration. So my goal with all these illustrations is to show the visual appeal of desserts and also show how fun baking could be. And I just wanted my light-hearted illustrations to be something that you would enjoy looking at on your calendar every day for a month. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. So next we have Raeef, Hanna.
Presentation with my postcard cover. Although this isn't one of the paintings I'll be discussing, I wanted to put it first as an introduction to my overall series in the show. It may be a bit confusing at first glance, but the more you look at it, the more you realize it's the point of view of an operation. I know many of you may be wondering why each hand may be holding a different tool that's opposite from the other. However, as I dive into the show, you'll begin to get a better understanding of this overall design I've created. To give a brief background story of myself, I'm a tattoo artist as well as a painter. I have spent most of my life in and out of hospitals, leaving me with many visible scars from various surgeries. The more I analyzed those marks, the more I realized they were eventually strokes and my body's the canvas. I often found emotional strength to my work and learned to leave my own stroke on the human canvas. A stroke that has helped me reveal emotional human expressions. Next slide. I would like to start with this painting entitled The Operation, which was motivated by Thomas Eakins. I can't help but admire and even idolize him. His eye for detail and skill in which he manipulates the paint to represent his canvas captivates my attention. In Eakins, the Gross Clinic painting, he illustrates a surgery performed to bring awareness to the advancement of science in the medical field. Eakins' style of painting has inspired my work tremendously. In my work, I set the scene of a hospital operation room and composed by spotlights, latex gloves, scissors, and needles. I am simply an impression of the surgeon below the spotlight who's prepared to leave another mark on the canvas. As shown in my painting, the ghosts of surgical nurses surround me during the operation, still haunting me with every mark I make. Next, I would like to introduce my second painting entitled Fallen Angel, which portrays one of my clients who has gone through many traumatic experiences and has used tattooing to express her emotions as shown on her arm. Although it may be a bit hard to view on screen, her arm illustrates an Om, which is one of the most important religious symbols in Hinduism. From my understanding, it represents perfection. I've painted her in the form of an angel using the pillow to illustrate a wing. The ring of light around the spotlight represents a halo because only angels can endure the pain caused by scars. Next. My third painting, entitled The Collaboration, the position of the model in this painting was inspired by an unknown photographer. However, I posed my own model, myself, as well as two of my co-workers to create this piece. I wanted to show unity in art, more specifically tattooing in this case how tattooing in this case can bring us together. I used oil on panel as a strong light source to emphasize the dramaticness of the story, as well as to draw the viewers in. Next. For my last painting, entitled Distractment, I was fascinated by how many by each one of my clients using a certain way to cope with pain, whether it's listening to music, sleeping, or simply watching a movie on their phone, which I have come to the realization that I use my art to distract and conquer the pain I've experienced. I remember being in an operation bed, staring into the ring of light, which you all see in each one of my paintings, and thinking, how much longer do I have to endure this pain? Years later, I realized it only helped me better myself. I was once an empty canvas, and now I'm filled with beautiful scars. That's it.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Marcos Renderos.
Good evening. My name is Marcos Renderos. I'm a illustration major. A little bit about myself. Pretty much my whole entire life, I've been drawing since I was a little kid. I get my inspiration from sci-fi films, folklore, graphic novels, and anime and mythology as well too. The series I'm about to present is called Monster Island. Most of my illustrations that I'm about to show you are mostly about mythical creatures. I chose mythical creatures because for generations to generations, people like myself are still fascinated about them to this day. They appear in our televisions, our artwork, and movies, and etc. And even like to this day, like people still choose to believe that they're real as well. Next slide, please. In this artwork, it's titled Dragon Turtle. I use references from the snapping turtle and from a great white shark as well. I'm trying to show dragon turtle basically just like eating just like any other animal as well, and just eating fishing for like great white sharks as well. Next slide, please. And this slide, I chose an eagle battling against a dragon. I got my inspiration from that from watching the movie Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, during the final battle scenes where you see like the golden eagles fighting off the evil dragons. It was like a good way to show good versus evil. Next slide. In this scene, I have like a dragon eating an alligator in the middle of the swamp. Again, I just wanted to show these animals in their natural habitat, to give the viewers to see they're not just mythical creatures. I mean, they're not just these amazing creatures to look at, but they're also animals, just like what we see in the wild as well too. Next slide. And here's I did an illustration of the three-headed snake, Hydra. I feel like Hydra is one of the most iconic mythical creatures that everyone's familiar with. I use different references from different snakes, such as anaconda and a python or a rattlesnake, and I try to try to combine all three of them and to make like these awesome like figures. I mean, these awesome like creatures and stuff. And as you can see, like they're preying on this innocent deer here. And then like I try to create like for Hydra, I try to create like a more like creepy feel to it, like give it like that dark story, give it like that dark environment and stuff. Next slide, please. And then here is another iconic mythical creatures, the Pegasus. Here, like I've seen, like I use like a lot of references in terms of like to try to pick out like the form, like the posture that I wanted the Pegasus to look. I wanted like the horse to look like it's about to fly as well. Next slide, please. And then here I have like the sea dragon versus the kraken. I wanted these creatures to like the cross paths as well. I wanted to draw like a battle scene between like the kraken, which everyone knows is like one of like the another iconic mythical creatures to this day, and then the sea dragon as well too. I wanted to create like a battle scene, like also like try to like show like the waves splashing and stuff like that and stuff. Next slide. And that's okay. That's the end of me.
Thank you. So our following speaker, Jasmine Shaw.
Can you hear me? Oh, hi everyone. My name is Jasmine Shaw. I am a photo major here at NJCU, and the title of my work is called Little Road, New Jersey, and it is the photographic series of my recent trip to China. Next slide, please. To begin, what inspired me to create this work is that as a photographer, I'm normally very concerned with capturing other stories or other narratives or subjects that don't necessarily relate to myself or my identity. And within the past year or so, I've photographed other Asian American communities, such as my mom, my dad, and my brother. However, I've never photographed myself. So I think always having the mindset of always being focused on other subjects or topics has made me very hesitant to complete this body of work in such an intimate way. And I think not examining myself is also a result of my childhood and upbringing as an adoptee from China. Growing up as an adoptee from China, for me personally, there are so many unknowns. For example, I don't know my real birthday, I don't know my biological parents, and I don't even know truly exactly which part of China I was born in. And I've grown accustomed to all of these unknowns. However, all of these factors has made it almost difficult and very hard for me to approach this body of work, but it has also pushed me to delve deeper and to really spend time with myself. And of course, being told this past winter that I had this amazing opportunity to travel to China was the tipping point in creating this body of work and really allowing myself to breathe and to have time and try to understand my Chinese American identity. And before I was preparing for this trip and while I was creating this body of work, I was asking myself lots of questions like, how do I document this journey to China? How does one document their first time of returning to their homeland or their motherland? And to me, that motherland is a place that I don't know the native language of, a place that I don't know what it really means to be Chinese there, and a place that I don't know all the cultures and customs there. And how does someone photograph the search for self-belonging as well as their own cultural identity? And so while I was there, I did experiment with photographing myself in various places in China. However, what really drew me in was the beautiful landscapes and the environments and the structures and the historical significance behind these different environments and locations, because I think the environment you grow up in and the people that you surround yourself with does affect and mold who you are, and it contributes to your cultural identity. And I really enjoyed finding the visual connections between varying environments, as well as finding the connections of man-made landscapes and objects and how they connect and relate to natural landscapes that surround them. And so, next slide. And so during this trip, I experimented with using a medium format film camera as well as a digital camera. I think I wanted to experiment with both mediums because when my parents first visited me in China, or went to get me, they had used a film camera to document their trip, and using both mediums was important to me, and using a similar and a different type of photography to relate to their trip during China. And I think that was just a major part in the creation of this work. Next slide. Another interesting thing that I encountered while being in China was the language barrier, as well as how native people of that land perceived me. During the trip, there were countless times where people of China would come up to me and start speaking in Chinese. And of course, I didn't know how to respond because I only speak English. And so it was such a surreal and weird feeling knowing that someone from your country and from your land is trying to communicate with you, but not being able to communicate back is just such a weird feeling. And of course, while I may look one way on the outside, of course, on the inside, I may resemble or have different values or resonate with different cultures and ways of life that I was brought up with in the United States. And next slide. And that's why I decided to collage these images, because from a distance, when you look at these images, you think they might be one image as a whole, or they represent one body as a whole. However, the longer you sit with the image and the closer you become with the image, you start to realize that they're actually two different images, and possibly two different images from different environments. So finding the disconnects and the connections between varying environments and similar textures and lighting and color and backgrounds and it actually does represent my cultural disconnects with my Chinese American identity, as well as the cultural connections I have with my identity. Next slide. And lastly, another important part to my work is the light leaks and the scratches on the film, or the damaged parts. Many times when people are going through film and shooting, of course, you're bound to have issues such as light leaks or photography issues, but when you're filtering out what images you want to show, sometimes images that have scratches or damages are thrown away or not looked at or not treasured. However, when I was going through this work, those images to me were beautiful and they meant something, and I think they embody how I process memory and how I process adoption. Within the light leaks in the images in my work, they distort the image, and that moment of me taking that image is no longer there. And so I think that's very representative of my connections as well as my disconnects with my identity. So I really enjoyed this work and I had a lot of fun with it. Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So our next speaker, the following two speakers are also part of the BFA talks, but they also were winners of the Karen Ziccardi Art Award. So we're going to continue on with Aminah Chaudhary and Junior, and then we'll and Angelica, Garcia, and Charles Tavares. But Aminah and Junior are also part of the BFA talk. So our next speaker, yes. So our next speaker is Aminah Chaudhary.
Hi, you can hear me, right? Hello? Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. My name is Aminah Chaudhary and I am a graphic design major. My first presentation is about my BFA thesis work, which is titled Untethered. This project is basically a combination or inspiration from so many things that personally belong to me. My childhood, my memory, my father, my culture, my love for abstract art, and me as a woman. So all these things are part of this project. Can you go to the next slide? First thing you probably notice about my work is all these beautiful colors, all these bold and bright colors. I believe in the idea that color is life. It brings smile, it gives energy, it gives a whole new angle to anything. So I am just like big fan of colors, and that's what you see in every work of me. And then a lot of people ask me question like, why butterflies, or why kites, or why even putting these things together? When I was little girl, my father once called me Meri Titli, which is Urdu for my butterfly, because I was one of those very energetic girls, like who's just running around and talking a lot, full of energy all the time. He probably just said that only once, but that word just became part of me. Growing up, that was in me. And I don't know when I started comparing those butterflies and those kites with each other. Because kites are a big part of my culture. Growing up, I had that kite festival every year. Every spring season we had that. It was not just for a day or for a week. It basically the whole spring season, you see kites everywhere in Pakistan. I'm from Pakistan, so everywhere you see those small and big, colorful kites everywhere in the sky. So just imagine yourself flying down on the grass, on the ground, and watching a kite or watching a butterfly up high, and if it's really far away from you, it's really hard to tell the difference because they both look similar, both kites and butterflies. But how amazing is the fact that both kites and butterflies are extremely fragile, but they're strong, just like us women. We are fragile, but we're super strong. Another association that I have with these butterflies is I am an immigrant. So I migrated, just like butterflies migrate every year. So I migrated from one country, one culture, basically one word to whole another word. And now there is this fusion of cultures within me it's in my heart, that's part of my artwork. And as a mother of 3 beautiful girls, the ultimate intent of my work is to show my daughters that the importance of following one passion, no matter how far you have to go for it. Like butterflies, I want them to embrace the inevitable changes in life with the strength of mighty women, and just to live and love the most colorful way. Can you go to next slide, and then just a couple of slides, because they're all just the butterflies. I just want them to see the whole colorful stuff. And the next one. So I named them, I'll just say in a minute why I named them individually. If you go to the next slide. So the process that I use, basically, as far as this goes, I use this handmade paper for the kites. And rather than doing digitally, I chose to do silk screening for the background, because I wanted to have that experience with them, and I wanted to have that control on every step. And then I did that hand embellishment, which is also a big part of my culture, embroidery, handwork, beads, and the sequin work is a big part. So I chose to do that. And while I was doing that, the amount of time I spent with each butterfly is just tremendous. And I started building that connection with them. I was literally talking to them while I was making them. That's where I decided to name them. And all these butterflies are named after the beautiful young girls of my family. They're from 2-year-old to 16-year-old. And just like those girls, these butterflies have this individuality, this character, this personality, which makes them special. So like, for example, one of my butterfly is Fatima, and she's Khubsurat, which is beautiful. One is Isha, that is Noor, which is the light. So all these have like those characters in them, and they have those personalities, which I actually see in these butterflies. So that was for my BFA thesis project. If you go to next slide. See, you see all this work that I did. The sequences, they were blank, and then just the silk screening, and then I put all this hand work on them. And I will also talk about my Ziccardi award work, which is after this slide. part of this? Okay, probably that was another. I mean, I'll just talk about that. So just like
Aminah, sorry, this is Midori. Can you hold off that part because it's not 6 o'clock yet, and
okay.
there are a lot of people coming in specifically for the award presentations.
Sure.
So everybody has presented so quickly. So we would like to maybe save that part for the later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was it for my BFA thesis work.
Okay. Thank you, Aminah.
All right, so our final speaker is Junior Mejias.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Junior Ismail Mejias. I am a BFA senior with a concentration in illustration. My specialties are cartooning and sequential art. So for my BFA thesis exhibition, I chose to realize a project that I've been working on for quite some time now, and that was to write and illustrate my own comic book titled Onslaught. But before we dive into the work, just a little bit more about myself. Next slide, please. I was born and raised in Caracas, Venezuela, moved to the United States. I got into the arts because of my father. I grew up watching him design and create because he is a tattoo artist. But really, it was the cartoons at the time that inspired me to go down this road of character design and narrative. I chose the titles you see on screen specifically because I think they embody the characteristics of what make a very compelling illustrated story, which to me is a well-written plot, relatable characters, aesthetically pleasing visuals, but most importantly is the tackling of mature real-world topics through entertaining fiction, which is something that you don't really see in cartoons anymore. So what I really admired was that besides the goofy antics for kids, these shows talked about important lessons about life, such as race, war, peace, emotions. And unfortunately, I don't think that is the case anymore these days. I think the newest generation of cartoons are poorly drawn and they really only focus about getting cheap laughs out of their audiences. So for my comic book, I wanted to go back to that style of storytelling that I enjoyed so much when I was younger. Next slide, please. So my comic book, Onslaught, is a dark fantasy story. It follows the adventures of a college student named Trevor Barrett as he is forced to maneuver a deadly landscape filled with monsters when he comes across a vengeful vampire hunter and a troubled witch. These are the first 3 pages of the story, as you may have already seen in the exhibit. They are ink on 11 by 17 Bristol with the lettering and speech balloons done digitally. My art is a combination of the American comic book style mixed with an influence of Eastern anime. I draw a lot of inspiration from comic and manga artists such as Greg Capullo, Mark Silvestri, Masashi Kishimoto. And excluding the cover, the entire series will persist in this black and white aesthetic that you see here as a nod to film noir and one of my favorite cartoonists, the late Will Eisner. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Hello. Next slide, please. Thank you. Oh, what the? I'm sorry, I guess my computer is slow. Can you go back, please? Thank you. So here you see a transition from pencils to full color. I prefer to do the initial sketch in traditional medium, so a trusty HB pencil followed by brushes and nibs. All right, I'm sorry. It keeps switching slides for me, I'm sorry. Okay, so hopefully you guys are looking at the 3 covers. So like I was saying, brushes and nibs for the inking, and then for the finish, I choose to go digitally because the software is more forgiving than traditional mediums and it allows for several variations of design in a shorter span of time. This chapter 1 cover features the main cast from left to right. Trevor Barrett, the college student, Jason Colt, the vampire hunter, and Abigail Cruz, the troubled witch. These characters are actually loosely based on myself and two of my coworkers. The inspiration came to me one night after I got stuck working with the late shift in the office with the same two people time after time. Eventually, we became really good friends, and I got to learn their tempers, their humors, their habits, and it just helped me craft these very believable characters. As far as the genre, I've always been a fan of horror films as well as fantasy adventures, especially stories with the classic hero's journey. So it was a no-brainer for me to write a dark fantasy. You know, there are so many fascinating supernatural creatures that come out of several cultures. It was hard not to want to include them all in the story. Next slide, please. So Onslaught took me 7 months to write, design, and illustrate. In this exhibition, I've only shown the first 6 pages, but the full chapter will be available in the fall for our brick and mortar show, including behind the scenes designs of the characters and several other aspects. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Should I respond now? Is it okay if I?
Yeah, you can go ahead, Doris, and then after you do the response, and then we'll open it up to everybody for questions. We have time.
Okay. I just have a few comments. Congratulations to everyone. This is very exciting to be a part of, and I know how much work goes into all of this, so congratulations. I wonder if it's possible to, Deborah, I don't know if this is complicated, but maybe we could go back to the slides if that's okay.
Sure. You want to tell me who you want to start with, and then I can do it?
Yeah, just since we're kind of did everybody, maybe we could go back and I could just comment and ask some questions briefly for each person again, and we could just go in the same order. I took some notes so that I would remember some reactions, immediate reactions. I usually respond, immediately in front of someone, so it's interesting. We're all learning how to think about things in a different way, right? Like some things that are instinctual get changed up when we don't have the work right in front of us. So I know, so I wanted to say that I realized for many of you not to be able to show the physical work, especially for some of the projects that are very physical, it's a little bit disappointing, but it's very exciting to see the work nonetheless, even if it's not in the room, right? So congratulations. I wanted to just, I guess, go in order to start with Asma. I wanted to ask, and maybe you'll get more questions about this, but I wanted to comment. I felt like the strength of your work, of course, is this kind of personal narrative, and there seems to be a lot throughout many of the projects, your projects and the others, where there is this kind of self-exploration. Maybe it's the beginning of your art career, college. The journey right now is obviously one of introspection, looking backwards, feeling where we are now, and looking forwards. And I think that was a theme in your work as well, kind of looking at yourself as sort of the theme of a lot of the projects. And so I thought that came across really strong. This particular piece, the board, I thought was, felt to me like it has a little bit of that sort of meme quality to it. It feels a little bit informal, but then also has this, sort of like urgency, kind of a sadness to it in a way that I thought was interesting. But it feels really different from your other work. So I wanted to, and so I was really bummed about this particular, realization that you're giving to us about the future. But I thought it was, there's a little bit of humor in it that isn't necessarily in your other work. So I thought it was cool to include a piece like this that's a little bit different. The passport piece and the graphic design work that has sort of this colorful feeling, I wanted to talk about those a little bit. This passport piece, I'm really intrigued by it, and I would like to look inside of it, as you mentioned. I think it's kind of an interesting idea to create a passport as a small biography or as a little portfolio, which you mentioned. But then my last comment is the colorful pieces, and that feels to me like maybe it's your design aesthetic, your design style, you know, the sticker and the t-shirt. And I'm curious if you have sort of, is that your design aesthetic that you imagine, you know, going forward? Those to me felt like commercial objects, and these other things felt more like art experiments. And so I'm curious, but they're all very much about you, so they could all be art projects, right? They could all kind of live in one room if you wanted them to. But I'm curious, do you imagine going towards that sort of more commercial product look? And is that a style that you developed that is influenced by you? Or are you more interested in these more art experiments like the passport and the billboard that are a little bit more maybe activist or, you know, slightly more political in their nature? I'm curious, Asma, if you have like a space that you feel more comfortable. I feel like there were these two like directions.
So it's actually the style that I created for this project. So, you know, you mentioned about the colorful, the use of color. That's because I'm representing Asia and the variety of places, and the colors represent the variety of countries. That's why I presented it in colorful versions. As you will see, the luggage, if you go on the first slide, the luggage design, right, the first one, the very first. Yeah, right here, you see the colorful, varied colors, the different colors. They all represent the different variety of countries in Asia, and that's why I chose specifically colorful sticker design here. Yeah. Same thing in Malaysia.
And do you think that this is like, is this indicative of your design aesthetic, or is this just something you came up with for your quote unquote client of Asia? Is the colorful thing kind of your aesthetic, or is this passport and this other sort of more graphic derivative images more interesting?
It's like passport one. The passport are more like my style of doing work.
This kind of like derivative, you know. Okay, so this kind of the play of the art object maybe is a little bit more interesting.
Yes.
Because these works feel activist to me, this and the billboard, and the other work feels more like commercial design, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I also thought it was strange to see an image with many buildings in Asia in one place, and I was a little bit like, why would you do that? But then I kind of understood. And of course you kind of carry the design to just Malaysia. It's just like these fake cityscapes are kind of interesting too. Sort of like you make up a place that's all these places at the same time. It's kind of interesting. Like a fake skyline. Yeah. Cool, well, congratulations. And you've intrigued me. I want to see both of these books, the passport and the journal. Now I want to see them. So I guess we can go on to Gabriela. So Gabriela, I'm going to start with a question. Are you, and you may have answered it, and I apologize if I missed it. Are you a printmaking major?
Hello. No. I'm not. I'm originally painting and drawing, okay. But about like a year and a half ago, about a year ago, I got into the print studio, and I don't know, it was just something that like I just I just felt it, you know?
Yeah. And do you feel like, so for you, so I was intrigued obviously by you using the tickets. I thought that was kind of interesting to kind of use these found materials. I like your kind of aesthetic decisions. And I know that you talked about, you know, sort of like introspection about place and time. And obviously train tickets have to do with both of those things. You're in a place or you're traveling from a place to another at a certain time. During a certain time, you're kind of traveling through space and time. So I think that those are kind of interesting connections that are pretty literal, but also your drawings are so abstract. So you kind of, you float in between something that feels very familiar and literal, and then you kind of play with these things that are more abstract. Is that something that you like, that kind of push and pull between the train ticket being like this kind of souvenir of space and time, and then the drawings, which feel much more abstract? And can you speak to that a little bit? Like, do you think you'll always work on something found with a drawing, or like, what's the process exactly that you get into with that?
Okay, so at first I was my specialty, I want to focus on more on like abstract work. That's what I like to mainly focus on. But I think it was something more that like I wanted to do. Let's see, how can I word this properly? I guess I just didn't want to talk about myself, you know? So I was thinking about all the things that really interest me. I was just on my way to school, you know, I take the light rail to school, like I used to every day, you know, or to work, or it felt more like a medium point, you know, between two destinations, you know, like point A or point B. And I just wanted to focus on something that it's always there, but we don't bring attention to, you know. It's very much background. We overlook it so easily, you know. It's never like a focal point, for many reasons, because we're thinking about ourselves, or thinking about problems, or thinking about our future, you know. So I just wanted to, I mean, and then in thinking of that, I started thinking about, I guess, things. I started to like deconceptualize these things and then recontextualize them into something more like abstract.
Cool. That was exactly the answer I was imagining, sort of like, how do you deconstruct? But yeah, continue to push into this space. It's pretty exciting.
Thank you.
I'm intrigued to see more of your work.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I wanted to just stop for a moment and ask Deborah, is this an okay form that I just go for a few minutes back to each person, or do you guys want to also come in at this point with questions? Because I know we're gonna have, should we just, I don't know, I wanted to ask.
I know Midori has something sort of like arranged, but I was thinking that maybe we could also just mix it up also to maybe the general Q&A.
Right.
So that, you know, there's a mix of it, and that's fine by me.
Okay, I'm just, moderators, please chime in at any time if you'd like to pause for a question. I will just continue to give some feedback to each of the presenters. Natasha, it's interesting that Gabriela, you mentioned that you did not want to explore self, because I did sort of think about that, how your abstractions were less about you and were more generalized, but I also saw that there was something about you, obviously, in this collection of tickets, which end up being like these archives of places that we were. With Natasha's, I thought it was interesting. It was also about time. There was this idea of calendar, right? This idea of like marking time, creating an archive of our year. And so, Natasha, I wanted to ask you, why did you make a calendar? And so the illustrations are so charming. And I love that you include, you know, so many sort of young people, you include lots of women of color, and you're kind of really like thinking about each of the people and their relationships in the works, and maybe that's sort of like self-reflection, or you're thinking about like how many people might enjoy these desserts. And so there's this kind of like whimsy and fun to the calendar. I love that it centers around dessert. I mean, why wouldn't we love that? It's so loving and wonderful. So kudos to making desserts into calendars. But I was wondering, why a calendar? Was that something that was prompted for you? Was that something that you just wanted to kind of create this collection and calendars feel natural for that? I was just curious about your choice of the sort of the idea of the calendar. Was that just like a rule that you wanted to follow?
Yeah, I kind of just wanted to have, like, I wanted to give myself like a basis for this so that I had something to follow for this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just wanted, and I felt like a calendar was something a bit more, a little unique, because you wouldn't really expect, like, a calendar isn't something that you would go for exactly with this kind of project. So I just wanted to give myself kind of like a prompt.
Right. So it was just sort of like something to follow for yourself.
Yeah.
Do you imagine that they'll always, like, will they be shown as a grid, or like, do you imagine it looking like a calendar on the wall, or are can they exist sort of separately from each other now that they've been made?
First I imagined it as like one of those flip calendars so that each month would show at that time, but I also could see them used for other purposes as well, just so that they could have like a broader reach.
Right. Yeah, like it's a portfolio that you get all together or something.
Yeah.
Cool. And is there, did you kind of follow any, was there any sort of like artistic influence, like the actual paintings or the choice of the characters, or was it all sort of from your, like, you know, sort of imagination of characters? Do you have like a bunch of sort of young folks that you draw from, that you use as models, or are these from history?
So these are all from my imagination. I didn't really have like a reference for like the people that I was illustrating here. So these are just all, like, I thought of these people and I just wanted to put those thoughts into like reality.
So they're invention. You're inventing them.
Yeah.
They're like kind of super based on people you know, something like that.
Yeah.
There isn't a rule for the people. The people are more inventive.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. They struck me. I was like, oh, this one feels more like a fantasy person, and this one feels more like somebody that I know. So there was kind of something a little bit, you know, interesting about each one that I thought was important to note. Thank you. It was fun. What a fun project.
Thank you.
And Raeef, obviously your project is so autobiographical, and I saw, you know, there was like this kind of like real strength of your story, especially, you know, as you sort of like introduced it in this really powerful way. And there is something very religious. It's interesting that you mentioned Akins, but the images to me have sort of a very kind of religious quality, and especially when you brought in Halo, of course, you kind of steered me towards that. You know, sort of the idea of spirituality, but the symbolism, I think, and the lighting is also, you know, maybe this kind of Caravaggio, you know, tenebrism, or the idea of these kind of spotlights on something that's happening that might be, you know, in that way. Do you find that because all of the scenes are of you tattooing, is that like really where you're focusing on, sort of painting these biographical images of you as a tattoo artist, or do you think that they're metaphorical? Because they feel very literal, but then there's also all of this kind of symbolism that kind of comes in. What do you imagine them, you know, are they sort of this layer on top of your sort of your career as a tattoo artist? You talk about tattooing as a distraction. So are the paintings a kind of an archive of that or how do you see the painting sort of functioning?
Honestly, I wanted to shine a light on the fact that I am a tattoo artist, but not just a tattoo artist. There's more to me than just tattooing, and I wanted to shine a light on the fact that tattooing could tell a broader story than it just being visually appealing. In this case, although I am tattooing, but in a way, I do picture myself as a surgeon in this specific painting. I take my job very serious, and this whole overall painting, as well as the series, I was hoping to compare myself to surgeons and how serious we take the job. But in the future, I do plan on creating a completely different body of work. I spoke a little bit about my history being in hospitals and everything like that. I didn't get into too much detail because it's a bit personal for me, and this is honestly the first time I have spoken about a situation that I've been in. In the future, I do have an idea in mind for a greater body of work, getting more into depth of the exact surgeries I've had and telling more of a story. I just wanted to start this off as maybe a quick, I don't want to say tease, but just like an introduction to what I plan on doing in the future.
Great, congratulations. I really enjoyed it. I like the connections to sort of the art historical references. And the halos, are those the lights you actually work with and you just happen to notice that they're halos, or was it the other way around?
No, they are the light. It's a little bit both. They are the light I work with is like a halo. It's funny because actually the light I have next to me right now is the halo.
Excellent.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that was a really strong symbol, and of course, like you paint them so, sort of prominently, and so I thought that was an interesting sort of, I guess, coincidence or.
Yeah, well, I wanted to emphasize on that part. Is if you remember, my conclusion was me looking at the ring of light, of course, in the operation room, which is why I put it in throughout all my paintings.
Yeah, it's interesting that those rings of light are still around you all the time.
Yeah.
Very, very powerful stuff. Thank you, Raeef.
Thank you.
And let's see. Marcus, right. Marcus, I have one major question, I guess, for you, which is what do you imagine these illustrations are for? So, you spoke about sort of like the dragon and the turtle, and of course these are all monsters, and then the Kraken, which is my favorite, and then Hydra. These are all characters that we know, and these are, sort of your interpretations. They're all sort of the same medium, the same size. What do you imagine these illustrations are for?
Well, on my whole, like I said, for my whole entire life, I've been inspired, looking at different artworks of mythical creatures and stuff. So I kind of just I just figured they can be used for illustrations for possibly for the next for movies, or for comic book characters, or for just illustrations and stuff.
So there isn't you don't have a plan?
At the moment, no.
Okay. And right now they just exist as kind of a series. If you could have, you would have just hung them up.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. I think we're all real familiar with these characters. We all have, I guess, relationships to them. I was kind of trying to imagine what they could become, right? Are they going to become sort of paintings? Are they objects that live in a gallery? Are they something that has, you may want to start thinking about that as you illustrate. Yes, you're drawing, you're kind of putting down ideas, but if you would want to imagine the future, where do those things go, right? Mm-hmm. Where do those, they almost feel a little bit like sketches, right? So sort of thinking about what they might do for an audience or might become. As an illustrator, you also want these things to be seen. So it's not just about drawing, but about showing, right? So where would these go? Who would look at them? Who would want to look at them? And why would they? You know, so just thinking about those next steps when you're illustrating, there's sort of the process of making, but then maybe there's the process of showing, right?
Right.
So that was kind of a big question I had at the end, was like, all right, where do these go next, right? What are these for? I literally wrote down, what are these for, you know?
Yeah.
So those are good things to think about, you know, now that you will be asked those things, right? So what happens? What is this? What is it for, right? What is it? What is your intention?
Mm-hmm.
With your Kraken and your dragons, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. But yeah, we the Kraken is definitely my favorite. There was all of this movement in the water really got me worried about what these could be metaphors for, that are things that are stressing all of us out right now. Cool. Okay. And then I think I have Jasmine was our last of the original 6, and I wrote quite a lot. Was a great presentation, Jasmine. And these are beautiful. And I did write one question that was resolved later on, which is, why does it say junior on your photograph? And I realized that that was a PowerPoint issue. Because I met Junior 2 minutes later. Yes. Okay. But Jasmine, your autobiography, again, sort of like kind of making the round here, the whole, your autobiography is so clear as sort of the underpinning of the project. And obviously it's a document of a journey that you went on, quite literally. And so we can all kind of imagine that. But this particular journey for you is so much more meaningful. And I really enjoyed so much the way that you speak about this exploration. You know, I think photography in many ways does that. It allows us to explore, and then it allows us to kind of compose something for others to see that, right? And so I think you spoke so well about your exploration of identity through this place or these places, right? And so I wanted to commend you for that. Sometimes speaking about the things that you make is very difficult. And so I wanted to give you kudos for that. I also realized the sun is shining. Close that, drape. And so I wanted to commend you. And then I also wanted to ask, when you get to the point of collage, I thought this was the most interesting part that you spoke about. And it's really the only question that I have. You know, I wrote collage exclamation mark because it just felt so important and powerful. I love the way you spoke about light leaks and the idea of the process of the photograph, and how when you make these, like, you know, what might be seen as a mistake or something that's imperfect, those are exactly the things you want to incorporate and pull in and really like think about thoughtfully and use. So could you just speak a little bit more about how you see the future of you using collage? I love how you used collage kind of subtly, right? You would kind of pull in things. You know, you're not trying to change the whole image for us. You're just ever so slightly, you know, transforming one into the other. Can you speak about maybe like the future of how you might see you using collage again, or how sort of you might push into that?
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I do definitely agree with everything. I think that I did subtly collage, and the way I came about creating this body of work was honestly me and my advisor were laying out all my photos, and of course they kind of just scattered on the table, and we were mixing and matching, and then we noticed that some of these images have similar textures or colors or values and hues, and that's how the collage came together. So I think in future wise, I would like to travel back to China, to the town or the orphanage that I came from, and explore collaging and finding identity in that way. But I also think finding collages through different environments of other topics, whether it be environmentalist issues or, you know, women's rights or other subjects or topics that I find interesting and close to heart, I think finding those visual connections is something I would like to explore, because for me at least, I haven't seen other people do it in the way I have. And I think because each photo, they speak to each other and they have a language to each other and fluidity. So I think finding those visual connections between different landscapes or environments or people's homes or their lives or their bodies themselves would be something interesting I would like to explore.
Yeah, I wanted to encourage you to play in that very, very subtle collage space. I think that was something for me, and I haven't seen them obviously in person and how you would print them and show them, but even just as digital collage objects on the screen, I think that subtlety for me was what was really powerful. And I think it's like the second to last image that you showed. Yeah, this was beautiful light. These, yeah, I think it's in this one, in this image. I love this arrangement too. I love that you kind of play, you think about the horizontal landscape, but then you also pulled in this much more intimate diagonal one. And I thought it was such a beautiful composition. But then I love those leaks, right? That those burn marks are just gorgeous. And I want to see like more of that. I think they work perfectly the way you talked about them. Just made them that much more interesting to me. And so I thought this piece was really, really strong.
Well, thank you so much. And yeah, it's another thing I forgot to mention is like finding connections and harmonies between the shadows and the day of time and how they relate to different environments and how they connect each other.
Kudos, good work.
Thank you so much.
I love this one in particular, yeah. Good job. And, do you want me to go on to the BFA, the last two BFA thesis ones, or are they part of the, yeah.
Okay.
I think there's a question about Aminah's work too, so I can start with the question that I have, and then we can ask the question from the chat. My question to Aminah is, do you imagine all of the butterflies, I know they all have individual names, and they exist you know, as their own objects, but do you imagine that they all are always exhibited together? Are they a series that works only all together in some kind of installation, or are they objects?
Basically the whole idea, how it started, like if it's part of series or it's individual. So I started as a series, but the more I was working on them, the more I was creating them, I felt like each piece is strong enough to have its own personality. But they can also you can show them as an exhibition together. So you can have a link between them, because I ultimately showing as a women power and the fragility and femininity and all those things together in that. And that's why I gave them name too. So I would love to see them, of course, all together, so you can have a connection between them, but definitely they can go on their own too.
Yeah. And I only had one other question about this series was, I loved that you spoke about the kites, obviously, but the kite festival and how a kite in the sky, the scale of a kite in the sky is, it could be confusing, right? A butterfly in the sky and a kite in the sky might feel the same from the ground. And I thought that was such a beautiful idea. And then I wondered, the scale of the butterflies that you made is neither the scale of a real butterfly or the scale of a kite. And I wonder, is the scale supposed to be like, okay, this is not a butterfly, but this is also not a kite, right? So it's not kind of somewhere in between. Was there a reason to kind of think about them in this oversized but not huge scale, or was it, you know, what was the intention of the size? I'm curious because I can't see them, so I wonder how are they, you know, why that exact size?
This size I chose because I was combining basically three things: butterflies, kites, and women. So like having their own personality, big enough and visible enough so you can connect with them, you can see them in front of you, you can feel them. So that was part behind it. And the original idea to hang them in the gallery like kites, some low, some high. There are only 2 big ones and there's 7 small ones, but the way I want them to hang in the gallery, so you can walk under them and you can actually feel them above you and you can see them in kind of sky kind of area. But at the same time, they have the size that you can connect with them.
Yeah, I also love that you named them for women because, of course.
Yeah, why not? I mean, all the girls that I told you, they are from 2-year-old to 16-year-old. There are 9 girls in my family. And it's amazing, like all those girls, they're like just like playing together all the time and like having fun with each other. But each one have their own personality. Each of them have their own character. You can sit with them, you can talk to them for hours. And so, and while I was working on these butterflies, these kites, I actually felt that. And that's where I was like, you know what, why not I name them like that? And why not I like feel, because I actually started feeling them in that way, to have that connection with them.
I love the idea.
I know there's a question from Natalia itself, like about the colors, like how the color combination for the butterflies. So I always say, like, you know what, the nature and all the species around us are the best palette for us. You look at them, you see them, and I think this is the best thing to get inspiration. If I see butterflies, so the background color for the butterflies, I chose a very subtle light color, just like the wings of butterflies, and the color that I put on top of them to like same, not like same family, but in a way that they pop out on the background. So you can think like the texture of butterfly and the wing at the in the back. So that was the whole idea, going like bright colors on the top and choosing the subtle color for the background.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll see you again.
Yes.
For the award. And then Junior, who solved the other mystery. I thought this was just wonderful. I love that you talk about the history of comics as an influence. And I think it's very clear that you are very passionate. And I do see very clearly where you want this to be seen, how you want it to be seen, how this connects to the history. And so I was wondering if you could talk about, and since you talked about the future of this particular comic, because you'll be finishing it and hopefully publishing it or self-publishing it soon, and it'll be available for folks to see in the fall. I'm wondering, besides the future of this particular book, if you could talk a bit about the future of how you see your storytelling, your comics. What kind of narratives do you take on? I thought, even in this particular story, it still feels very rooted in the history of comics. It doesn't feel super current, and maybe that's just a sort of aesthetic, the car and some
if you see me
style of drawing.
Not talking, I apologize. I'm still experiencing some technical difficulties.
Oh, sorry, Junior. I'll ask you a question in the chat and you can answer it offline. The question is just, you know, how do you see the future of your comics? Would there be stories that were more, that felt more contemporary? So I was just asking about the future of comics, but I'll type it out for you. And you can answer later. Thank you. So that was it. That was all the notes that I had made. This was very exciting, and thank you for having me to give a little bit of feedback. And I'm sure that there'll be more questions, hopefully, in the chat if others would like to ask our artists some questions. Thank you.
Yes, at this point, maybe I know we have so many of our colleagues, professors, actually even retired Professor Herb Rosenberg, I see. Winifred, who is on sabbatical, our president, Sue Henderson, Dean, Joao, Sedicius, everybody's here. So if you like to ask a question on maybe these BFA students before we do award ceremony. So some of you, if you are, feel familiar with the video setting and comfortable appearing, you may turn on your video, or we can turn it on for you. Let's see. Maybe if you like to speak, you can raise your hand. If not, you can just post your comments and then question in the chat.
If anyone would like to ask verbal questions, you can raise your hand. In order to do that, you need to open the participants window. It should be found at the bottom of your screen. You click on the button that says participants, you can open that, and at the bottom of that window there is a blue hand button. That will allow you to raise your hand so that we may call on you and unmute your mic to ask you a question, or so you may ask a question.
Okay, not at the moment, I guess. So this may be a good time to transition. Doris, thank you so much for your very thoughtful, insightful comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then give thanks, loads of applause round of applause to all the BFA students who just gave a talk today thus far. Thank you. I see Miss Karen Ziccardi, President. Yes, thank you. So shall we maybe transition here belatedly to the Karen Ziccardi Art Awards presentation. So the two students who are part of the recipients already presented their BFA portion of the work, but they have also a couple of other images. So, but I would like maybe turn to President first to speak. May I? Yes.
Thank you very much. I want to thank you so much for inviting me because this is a very special thing to me. I asked the provost to come because, as you know, she's an art historian. And so she was just texting me. She said, I know what the pain those students are feeling right now doing their BFA exhibits. But the reason I'm here, not only to celebrate the students and for the good work that you've done and for the faculty for the hard work that they've done, but I want to thank Karen. Karen is someone who I met a few years ago, and I'll never forget the dinner we sat down when she talked about what a difference NJCU had made in her life in terms of giving her a direction about what she can do, what's possible. And she graduated from NJCU, it was then Jersey City State, with a degree in art education. But what she got the opportunity to do during one of her semesters was to go abroad, and I think it was Copenhagen. I might have the country wrong, but because of that, she said it absolutely changed my trajectory because my professors believed in me and the good things that I did. It gave me the confidence to go on and earn an MA and MFA in degrees in environmental design at the University of California, Los Angeles. She also studied architecture and design at the University of Copenhagen. And because of that, she now started Ziccardi Designs in 1977. And her daughter, Brooke Ziccardi, joined the business in 1999. She partners with architects, contractors, consultants to transform their clients' vision from their homes to office reality. And one of the things that you probably may not know is that many of her clients own homes that you and I would covet to go visit. She's received the American Society of Interior Designers Orange County Lifetime Achievement Award. And it's a real honor to be able to see her here and to thank her again for the support that she provides our students, because as she says to me every time we meet, I was one of those students and nobody believed in me, but my faculty believed in me, and look where I am today. So I would tell all of you students, you have a high bar if you're going to do half of what Karen has done. But I want to thank her for her work, and I want to thank the students. You are incredibly talented, but you're talented because I think the faculty bring it out in you. So I want to thank you for that. So Midori, do I turn it back to you?
Yes, we would like to introduce also Dean Joao Sedicius. He doesn't have a camera at the moment, but he can speak. Let's see. Joao, are you there? Okay, let me unmute.
All right, yes, thank you so much. You had control of the muting, so thank you very much. I apologize that you cannot see me, but I lost not only my camera, but several of my peripherals because of electricity spike. And our provost knows that only too well when her electricity went out in a Zoom meeting earlier today. But it's an honor to be here to introduce Karen Ziccardi. President Henderson basically did a much better job and covered all the important information. And I would like just to call the following to your attention about Ms. Ziccardi's background. Karen Myers Ziccardi graduated from what was then Jersey City State College with a BA in art education in 1968. She established the Ziccardi Art Fund annual scholarship in 2007. She received the NJCU College of Arts and Sciences Distinguished Alumni Award in 2013 and spoke at the university's commencement ceremony in May 2018 as a member of the class of 1968. Ms. Ziccardi launched her interior design company, Ziccardi Designs, Inc., and I strongly suggest that you visit her website because it is the sort of thing that when you see, you say, I would like to have a house like that someday. It is beautiful. It's truly an aesthetic experience. And she established this company over 30 years ago, earning the respect of a worldwide clientele, which includes royalty, entertainment figures, entrepreneurs, hoteliers, and developers. Karen is a loyal donor to her alma mater, NJCU. Back then it used to be called the Jersey City State College. And she annually funds and presents the Karen Ziccardi Art Awards to high achieving art students since 2007. I would also like to give Karen a very special CAS welcome as a new member of the advisory board of the College of Arts and Sciences. We look most forward to her valuable guidance and participation on our board. So please join me in welcoming Karen Ziccardi to this very festive occasion.
Hello there. So I'm relatively new to the whole Zoom process. So with the help of my daughter, who is here, and my granddaughter, who is right here in the photo with me, we've got it organized. So I'm here with you. Can you hear me? I don't know.
They're all muted. And
oh, I see.
You're
yes,
okay,
we can all hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, since I'm not sure exactly how this is going to work with feedback from you, I'll just tell you how happy and proud I am to be here. Even though it's all the way across the United States, I'm delighted to be here with all of you to virtually award 4 amazing students. when our little group of reviewers, art reviewers, were looking through all the work, we always look forward to receiving the portfolios because each year I am absolutely delighted to see the progress and the professionalism and the growth that comes with all of your good, hard-working efforts. So congratulations to the whole group. But 4 of you actually took our breaths away. So the 4 of you are winning the awards today. And I'm putting on my glasses so I can actually read your names properly. So we have Aminah. Congratulations, Aminah. I loved your typography. And then I just got a chance to see in your BFA presentation the fabulous butterfly concepts. Amazing. I want to talk to you about those later. Angelica, your illustrations and your charcoals were fantastic. Loved them. Congratulations. Junior, those comics are amazing. I'll tell you, when I remember you brought me all the way back to when I was 5, 10, 12 years old. I couldn't wait till Sunday papers came and I got to see the comics. And Charles, wonderful art education. We so need wonderful, dedicated, and super talented art educators. So congratulations as well. So I usually say a couple of things about how important it was for me growing up in Jersey City to sort of share the fact that as many of the students in New Jersey City University, I still like to recall the times that I would take a bus or walk to school. My mom always said, it isn't if you're going to college, it's that you are going to college. Okay, Mom. So it was not an easy time as I was growing up. We're from a blue-collar neighborhood. There were really no college-educated members of our family. So it was a really big deal to get to go to college. And at that time, you're all probably tired of hearing this, but there were basically 3 choices for me: a nurse, a teacher, or a secretary. Well, I thought of all 3 choices, teacher sounds cool. What do I want to teach? What do I love? Art. So that sort of set me on the path of being an art educator. But as fate would have it, one of my art teachers said to me once in my junior year, I think you should try out to go to the University of Copenhagen for the junior year or half year abroad program. You can represent the art department. Well, that seemed like a pipe dream, a wonderful pipe dream nonetheless. And her name was Miss Dahoney. She taught art history. And she said, you go home and just talk it out with your mom, which I did. And my mom didn't immediately say no. So I thought, oh, well, maybe she knows something I don't. So we decided we were going to make this our challenge. So I had, I think, 1, maybe 2 after-school jobs. And my mom did too. And we saved up. And guess what? I found myself on an airplane heading to Copenhagen. And I had a chance to study architecture and design, and I loved it. And I said, this is something unique and wonderful and fun. I think this is my future. So I went, got home, senior year, applied to Berkeley and Stanford and UCLA. And I'll always remember one of my teachers, not in the art department, of course, saying to me, oh, don't get your hopes up. Stanford will never accept somebody from, it's just a teacher's college. Well, guess who was the first one I went to tell when I got accepted to Stanford? Her. She was like, oh, I can't believe it. I'm just sharing these stories with you because don't let anybody say to you, oh, you're not good enough, you can't do it, you're only this, you're only that. You're the only one who sets the onlys. So take them away and just go and pursue what you think you can do with passion and excitement. And I guarantee you, you'll have a better life pursuing something that you love. I don't know what that's going to take you or where it's going to take you, but it will certainly be more interesting than settling for something that's just ho-hum. So this is my sweet, darling granddaughter, Lily. And Lily usually comes, well, has been coming for several years to New Jersey. Last year, she was the photographer, the official photographer. So this year, she's just going to say a few words to you of encouragement. So, Lily?
I just wanted to say that you all did a fantastic job, and it is amazing that you got yourselves there at your age. And I'm saying this from a younger perspective. And I just wanted to say, great job. And thank you for putting your minds to it so we can see what you have done with your creations.
Thank you, Lily. That was well said. You can come next year too.
Yay.
Well, that's it. And I just wanted to thank you all for participating and for giving me such great joy in seeing the wonderful things you're accomplishing. Thank you.
Karen, for your speech and always presenting awards to students personally, but this year through virtual space.
Yes.
I'm glad it went okay.
Yes.
Yes. So Aminah and Junior actually did their presentation earlier as part of BFA talk, but they have a couple more works that award-winning works that they like to show to the audience. So Deborah, can we share the slide? Thank you. So Aminah, can you come back on to speak briefly about your award-winning work, maybe in a couple minutes?
Yes, I'm here. So first of all, I wanted to say thank you. I wanted to say thank you earlier, but I think it was so overwhelming and everyone was so excited for the BFA talk. I personally want to say thank you to each and every person who's here, who's joining the meeting today and listening to the BFA talk, especially all the people I personally invited. They're here and I'm so happy to see them here. And then big thanks to Ms. Ziccardi. It was a huge, huge opportunity. I still can't believe I won. I'm one of the recipients. This is amazing. Thank you so much for this. It means really a lot. I'm feeling very honored and very humbled about this. As I was talking in my earliest talk, my love for color, love for abstractions, so just like that, I have another love, which is type. I just love typography. And then my inspiration for type comes from my everyday life. If I see something like any word, any letter written around somewhere, I don't really see like a word. I don't really see them as a letter. I actually see them as a piece of art, as a beautiful composition. And so I started doing this. I used to just sit down and draw letters and draw words together and try to make them look like beautiful drawings or beautiful paintings. And I still like to do that. Whenever I'm like not doing anything, I just like working with type. And the best channel that I found to express my love, of course, for typography was abstract art, representing my ideas and representing my style for type and like making those compositions through abstraction. I felt like there's no restriction to that. I can just go above and beyond with that. I can float anywhere I want. So because it is very relaxing for me, it is very, very stress relieving for me. So I love doing that. These are some of the composition you're seeing on screen that I submitted for the award. This is basically from my book. This is the volume 1 of my, I don't know, it's just weird with this. Anyways, this is the volume 1 for my fantastic book. So I'm super happy with this book. I hope more are coming, more on the way. These are some of my original composition that I created with type. So each composition is consisted of one typeface. The first volume was based on like my favorite fonts. So they're consisted of one typeface, but of course using different weight, different height, different size, uppercase, lowercase, glyphs, all those things, putting them together as a composition. So these were the design I created. And I don't know, I didn't even know I can go this far with this. I just started working with this and it would just like keep on going. And as I said, the love for color. So I create something, and even if I just put one dot of color, it makes me satisfied. It feels like now it's alive. If it's talking to me and I'm talking to it, and it's not just like a design, it's just something that I can connect with. So that's my whole process with this work. And I'm so happy that you were able to see that and you were able to see my perspective in that type compositions. Thank you.
Thank you, Aminah.
Hi, everyone. I guess I'm presenting next, right? Let's see. So I'm Angelica Garcia. I'm an illustration major at NJCU. And I'm so happy that I recognize most of the people who's here on this chat. Thank you all for coming. And for all of those who did the BFA show this semester, like, great job. I can't wait to see it in person. I've submitted charcoal and pastel work for my Ziccardi Award. And as I begin to like think about it, the works that I've submitted is basically a summary of what I've done over the past few years at NJCU. It's mostly life drawing assignments, other drawing assignments from class. This one right here is a life drawing assignment with Professor Dahl. I did a superimposed model in charcoal on toned paper. Next, please. This one is from last semester. It's another charcoal drawing on toned paper. Most of these works that I've done for the Ziccardi Award were recent, from this year to last year, this last year to this year. But this one is, I took a photo of this one and I used photo reference to draw a large drawing. As you can see, it's right behind me actually. It's a 40 by 60 inch drawing in charcoal. Next, please. This is also another life drawing assignment, a clothed figured model. This is done in pastels on toned paper. And this one's actually one of my favorites. I really like the way I used color here. Next. And this is actually one from a few months ago. Another pastel drawing on toned paper. I just really love working in pastels and the looseness I can go with any type of drawing, large or small. And I just love that pastel medium is kind of like my comfort medium, but I am exploring other mediums so far. So thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Charles Tavares. At the moment, I'm currently hoping to finish off my teaching certificate program. I also graduated in 2014 with a BFA in painting and drawing. So if you can go to the next slide. The left one is actually from a series of self-portraits for my BFA show, and so that was in 2014. The one on the right is an acrylic self-portrait on found media. So it's actually scrap pieces of wood formed into a canvas, and that was in about 2016. Primarily, I do self-portraits or portraits in general. I have slowly worked into digital work, which is a lot more forgiving, as someone else mentioned. But at the same time, you kind of lose a little bit of that traditional media feeling. So if you want to go to the next slide. So this was a digital piece that I did with some close-up shots. This was a self-portrait commission. So I draw a lot of inspiration from Sargent. So while a lot of details are in the face, it kind of gets obfuscated in the hair or clothing. So if you notice the pattern here kind of just breaks down completely in the shirt, but from far away it kind of looks like that chain shirt effect. So you can go to the next slide. So this one is actually a acrylic portrait that I wanted to get a lot of. I kind of borrowed a lot from Rembrandt and his really dark self-portraits. And this was actually a gift to someone special to me. So I also try to get a lot of those warm tones that he likes to get into his paintings. It doesn't photograph that well because there's a satin finish to it, so I apologize if it kind of looks off a bit. Next slide, please. So this was when I was still experimenting with digital work. So this is still from a show many of you might recognize, Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So I was trying to still figure out how to work almost traditionally in digital work. And at this point, I was kind of fighting this a bit. So what I would do is put down all in terms of darks and lights, I would put all those down first. And then I would kind of blur them around, but this took forever and I quickly abandoned this process. So you could go to the next slide. And this is more of, again, with Sargent being a big inspiration, a lot of the details are focused on the face and the hands, but this one doesn't have hands. And then in terms of the background details or the clothing, everything kind of gets lost a bit. So that's kind of my work method and what I'm currently doing. And thank you again for the award and everything.
Hello. Can you hear me? My microphone might not be working well.
We hear you.
Okay, good. All right, thanks. So, well, if maybe can we all maybe make everybody to appear if all of you are comfortable in appearing on a video just for some minutes to congratulate everybody. Let's do that since this is a celebratory opportunity. How can we do that? And Doris, thank you so much for your comments earlier on. And sorry, still to everyone to come on the screen.
Medora, you might have to select the grid up at the top in the top left for the view, because it's already set as a grid right now.
Yeah, no, what I mean is to allow everyone to share the screen. I mean the video.
Everyone has the ability to allow it. They just need to enable it themselves. We can't force put on anyone's video.
Okay, all right. So that's not it's an option. I just wanted to say maybe I'll stop sharing recording, so you might feel more comfortable doing so. Yes. So, well, would you like to just congratulate everyone and turn on your maybe also microphone?
Like the best thing.
I know you've been silent all this time.
Great work.
Congratulations for all the hard
Just left
work.
him eating by himself.
$1,700. Especially through
I'm
this.
like, who is in there with you? He said, nobody. They just left the food here and that's it. I'm like, no, somebody should be there. Making sure that you're okay. It's your very first meal after everything.
It's just nice to see everyone and say goodbye, but I guess it's so hard to regulate so many people's speakers and the background noises. So shall we just say call for the night and this will be it. But thank you. Karen, would you like to speak just one more time in the end? That would be a good way to end. Or
We'll just say have a wonderful, wonderful summer, whatever that's going to look like. Keep painting and drawing and illustrating and getting ideas. Be inspired by the very simple things around you. And I think you'll have another world to look at when we all come out of the other side of this lockdown. Congratulations. Thanks for inviting me. I look forward to seeing your work again and again. Okay, bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.